Hello, hello, hello. I'm not going to get used to it. Welcome in, everybody. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day, great evening, great Memorial Day. Hopefully, everybody had a good Memorial Day today. Um, if you guys didn't get a chance to get out and barbecue and do all those things, make sure you do that sometime this week because barbecuing is fun. I saw some people doing it earlier, and I was like, man, I really want a barbecue hamburger now. So that's what I'll be thinking about. But my name is Tanya, and we do talk all things true crime on this channel. So if you appreciate tonight's case coverage, and I hope that you will, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel and just hitting the like button on the video. If you want to become a member of our channel, we are always accepting new members, and I need to get my memberships up. So if you would like to become a member, we would love to have you, and I will drop the link for the memberships in the chat, and it's also pinned above. So we'll go ahead and we'll see who's in the chat, and then we'll get on with tonight's live. So this isn't a new case that we're covering tonight. It's an older case, but it's newer to the channel. We've covered it before, but it's coming back around. Hey, Cheryl. Hey, Jan. Hey, Ken. I saw Ken was in here. Catherine. Welcome, everybody. Mary Beth. It's good to see you guys. Cat's Live's here. Lenora. Welcome in, Tammy. Hey, Steve. Hey, Tony. It's good to see you guys. Hey, American Bully Mama. Catherine. I don't know if I said that yet. Crystal Burns. Oh, you're okay. Green Eyes. Well, welcome in. Hey, DM. Hey, Aries. I know. I hope Otto's okay. I saw that. I hope Otto's okay. I know Otto wasn't feeling very well. True Crime Fan PV. I like that name. It's been a long time. Name going back in 7 days. That's so funny. I was reading. I was trying to read. You said names going back in 7 days. Can you not? I think you can only change your name like once. Wasn't that like how it is? Once every 7 days. Hey, Thistle. I said Thistle. Well, welcome on in, everybody. We are going to cover the case of Crystal Rogers tonight. It's one that we've covered on this channel before. Let me grab this. I'll be looking up a little bit tonight, but we're covering the case, like I said, of Crystal Rogers. We've covered this case in the past on this channel, but things are starting to come up now. It seems like more frequently in this case to where we could cover it. You know, we could cover the whole case. We could cover through the trial and all that stuff. So tonight I wanted to do like the overall story of the case and everything that's happened up until probably I don't know. We're not going to get like all the updates in tonight, but you know what I mean. We'll get through most of them because there are so many different twists and turns to this case. You guys are going to be really surprised. But if you haven't heard of this, okay, so if you have heard of this case with Crystal Rogers, put a 1 in the chat. And then if you've never heard of the case of Crystal Rogers, put a 2 in the chat. Either way, we're going to teach you. We'll tell you about the case. Hey, Reba. It's good to see ya. Okay. I'm surprised more people have heard about it. I was watching things about this case since it happened. Okay. Tamarina said, I'm not sure. Okay, well, I bet you after we start, showing pictures and stuff, you'll remember. And if you don't remember, I'm going to give you guys a timeline because we did a timeline on this case a while back. We haven't covered this, I would say since last. I thought it was before I thought it was this year, but I don't think it was. I think it was last year sometime. I should have looked that up. But there are some new updates in the case. So basically what I thought we would do is go over the initial timeline. And then after we're done with the timeline, we'll, what is this I had up? Oh, I have something to tell you about Miss Nancy Grace and her interview with Brooks Houck. And then we'll go to Joseph Scott Morgan. He's going to give us like an overall of the whole case. And I thought it would be good to kind of like listen in. And then that way it like perks everybody's interest because this is a very interesting case. And then I can come in and do some visuals and, do the all of the documents and stuff like that and court hearings. Let me go back to the beginning here. And then one of these pages or one of this group, I'm not going to go over it. So if you see me skipping it, that's probably why, but I'll let you know. So let's get her on the stage. Well, thank you for becoming a new member. True Crime Fan, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's see. Gotta share the right tab. There we go. Everything, if you guys are like, does she know how to do a live? I don't. Everything got switched around. So everything used to be to my left. Now everything's to my right. We'll get it figured out. It's probably going to take me a good month or so. It'll probably take me forever. Happy Memorial Day, Ken. So is this up for everybody? Nope, it's not. So I'm glad I checked. That would have been embarrassing. That'd been awfully embarrassing. So I do have a couple spelling mistakes. I accidentally put one of the words in twice. So just don't mind that, okay? But this is going to be Crystal Rogers here. There's not a lot of pictures of her. And I don't know if it's because it was like 2015, you know what I mean? Like people, my accident was in 2014 and I have like 6 pictures of it. And I'm like, where's all my videos of me like doing all these things and everything? So I don't think people, I don't know. I just feel like people didn't take as many pictures back then in 2015, not like they do now. So there aren't that many pictures of her, but we'll go through some of them. So about Crystal Rogers is a 35-year-old woman, mother, sorry. And she's, not to get ahead of myself, but she's not been found yet, but she's believed to have been, unalived. So, but I'm going to still use her in the present tense. So Crystal Rogers, a 35-year-old mother of 5, went missing on July 3rd, 2015. She was living with her boyfriend, Brooks Hauk, and their son, and Crystal's 4 other children. So they had a child together, her and Brooks. I think his name's Eli. She was last seen by her boyfriend. He said that when they went to sleep, she was still awake and playing games on her phone. When he woke up the next morning, she wasn't there and neither was her car. So a mother of 5 playing games in the middle of the night on her phone, and then she's missing the next day. The family immediately became suspicious of Brooks and said many times throughout this investigation that he didn't show any emotion. He didn't help in the searches. He didn't show up at the press conference, although it stated that the police told him not to come. And that's not true. And even when Nancy Grace and another reporter interviewed him, he once again showed no concern for Crystal and the fact that she was missing. And we did listen to that interview with Nancy Grace. We may have to listen to that again because she knows what she's doing. On July 5th, Crystal's car was found on the Bluegrass Parkway. Crystal drove a maroon 2007 Chevy Impala. Her purse, cell phone, and diaper bag were found on her front seat, and the keys were in the ignition. The car also had a flat tire. And we're starting to learn now who was driving that car. So it's crazy. On July 8th, Brooks was brought into the police station for questioning. In the show, the police said, I don't know why I said that. It said at first, Brooks showed no emotion and that he was calm, but half an hour later, he showed he had a temper and was cussing at the police. Halfway through his interrogation, he got a phone call. It was his brother, Nick Hauk, who was a Bardstown police officer. So he's sitting, so this is Brooks, and he has a brother named Nick, and they're known in the area. So he's in the interrogation room, and his brother works for the police station. He's a cop. So his brother calls and tells him to stop talking, get up and walk out. And you hear Brooks say, "You just want me to walk out? Just get up and I'm telling the truth." I hate his accent. I do. But I'm telling the truth. You know how he talks, but we're like, no, you're not. You're not talking no truth. Not talking no truth. So let's see where we at. Brooks said he was leaving after that phone call. Crystal's mom thought it was weird that since he kept claiming he was innocent, why would his brother need to tell him to stop talking? And Crystal's mom, Sherry, is extremely smart. She's no dummy when it comes to like common sense and knowing what's right. She knows what's right and wrong. And they were right. They were right to, think that Brooks had something to do with this. I mean, obviously he's been arrested. He's on a $10 million hold. So we never got to see we never watched the interrogation with Nick. This is Nick Hauk, the brother. So we might have to go back and listen to that because Nick gets told he failed the lie detector, and the guy's like talking to him. He's like, "You failed it. Don't tell me you didn't do anything." And I didn't get to see all of it, but I want to watch it with you guys. Um, so the next day, Nick was called to testify in front of a grand jury. The police had a strong suspicion that Nick had a hand in the disappearance of Crystal. Nick was given a polygraph test and failed. They also searched Nick's police cruiser and found biological fluids in it. He told investigators he didn't care what the damn computer said and that he was innocent. On October 16th, 2015, day before my birthday, Nick was fired from the police department. So they kept him on for a little while, over 3 months before they fired him. Shortly after that, they named Brooks as a suspect. They searched the farm property and took several garbage bags of evidence and didn't find anything. They did find surveillance tapes of Nick and Brooks leaving closely together and thought that was interesting. So they were out. It was like, what, 12 o'clock at night? They were out feeding the cows with their son that was like 2 years old at the time. None of it made sense. On November 19th, okay, so Tommy Ballard is Crystal's father. Tommy Ballard is he's the dad everybody wishes that they had. You know what I mean? Like if they didn't have a good dad. He's an excellent man. He was out searching for his daughter for days, months, every single day. It didn't matter what the weather was like. It didn't matter if he was tired or if he was broken or anything. Like the dude was nonstop. He was like, I don't care. I'm going to find my child. So with him doing that, he ends up getting shot and killed. So on November 19th, 2016, so a little over a year after Crystal went missing, Tommy Ballard went hunting on his family property with his grandson, who was 12. He told his grandson he left something in his vehicle. He was killed by a single gunshot wound in the chest. The police tested Tommy's gun and ruled out suicide. Crystal and Tommy's family think their cases are connected. Crystal's mom, Sherry, said Tommy told her that a few days before he was being followed. His case has never been solved either. And now they're bringing in Nick Houck for that. That's like one of the updates that I saw today. I was like, oh, because they did say during one of the court proceedings that it matched like 4 out of the 5 criteria, the gun that they found. So we'll see. But they don't have her. They don't have Crystal. So then they're tying in Jason Ellis's murder to this. So I'm going to read over it because it does like have to do with everything. But the second one on the page, I'm not, because I've heard that they're not connected now. So in May of 2013, 2 years before Crystal went missing, around 2 a.m., a Bardstown police officer named Jason Ellis was on his way home when he was killed off exit 34. He got out of his car because it was being blocked, and that's when he was killed. He was killed by a 12-gauge shotgun. So very much could be related. So then we have arrest made. Look at this guy. He's scary. If I've ever seen scary before, imagine sitting in a cell with him. He looks like the smelly kid in his class. Guess he's the smelly kid in jail, but yeah, this is a really, really crazy case. And Joseph Scott Morgan's going to be able to put it in a little better terms than me, you know. That's why I'm going to have him started out. But on September the 7th, Joseph Lawson, a 32-year-old Nelson County man, was charged with criminal conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in connection with Roger's death. He pled not guilty in Nelson County Court, in Nelson Circuit Court, and his bond was set to $500,000 cash. So when Brooks Houck is in the interview, he gets a phone call from it wasn't Joseph, was it? I think it was the dad. So he gets a call from the dad and Mr. Lawson, and he's like asking him a question, blah, blah, blah. So then all of a sudden they have his son in custody. So it was just a matter of time before they went and picked up old dad, because like, why they got your son and they don't have you? So he got tampering with evidence and conspiracy to commit M. And the tampering with evidence, I believe, is going to be him driving her vehicle. And wasn't her seat a certain way? I'm gonna have to look into that. I think there was a weird, like something weird about the seat. On September 27th, so when was he arrested? I forget. September 7th. So 20 days later, Brooks Houck was arrested and charged with complicity to murder and tampering with physical evidence. His bond was set at $10 million. Biggest bond they've ever had in that county by $8 million. Oh, I guess I've kind of like blocked him off, but he's been indicted on charges of criminal conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence in the Rogers case. And this is the father, of old Joseph right here. He's 32. Oh my God. Oh my God. He's not. He is not. He is not. He's seen better days. I was just reading the chat. Hey, Michelle. Welcome in, everybody. And let me put this in there really quick, and then we will move on. I think that's all I have for you for that. So we can move on to something else. Let me see here. So Nancy Grace did an episode with Brooks Houck. She did the interview. It'll say it somewhere in here, I believe. But we watched it. It looks like July 9th, 2015. So she did an interview with Brooks Houck, and she asked him a series of questions. And you can tell by the interview, there's just something off. There's just something's not vibing, But I just wanted everyone to see this, because for all the people that are hating on Nancy in the back, let me read this to you, okay? Because Miss Nancy, she asked those hard questions for a reason, and they're using her video and their test and their like case now. So maybe it's a good thing she asked all the hard questions. Someone's got to do it. Sorry, I keep hitting this thing that my feet rest on. Just gonna move it over. Let's see, where do we need to read? Okay. A week after the attorneys and prosecutors in the Crystal Rogers case agreed to move the trial to Christian County in Southwest Kentucky, they're moving it so that, because too many people, they're saying no, the case in Bardstown, which it's kind of like the Idaho 4. I mean, everybody knows about this case, like in Kentucky. No matter where wherever they moved it, people would know. The Nelson Circuit Court clerk has received a copy of a certified video recording of the July 9th, 2015 episode of Nancy Grace on a flash drive, according to new court documents released Thursday. However, the documents say it can only be used in legal proceedings against Rogers' boyfriend, Brooks Houck, not father-son duo Steve Lawson and Joseph Lawson, because it was Brooks Houck that was talking. In the episode, Grace asked Houck why he didn't report Rogers missing when he realized she was gone. And this is what he said. Wish I could do his voice. I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. Kind of sounds like him. We had a stressed relationship at times, and one of the ways that Crystal has always chose to cope or deal with that is by going to a young woman's name, Sabrina. That's her cousin, her dad's brother's daughter, whom she is very close to. She spent the night there on several occasions. Rogers' parents, Sherry and Tommy Ballard, were also on the episode. Grace asked them if they knew who Sabrina was, and Tommy confirmed that that was his niece. Grace asked them if they knew that Rogers would go there and spend the night when she was having an issue at home, and Tommy said he knew of one time. Grace then grills Houck on why he went to the 4th of July get-together that his family was having when he didn't know where Rogers was, because she disappeared on the 3rd, 4th. I had to put in a phone call that morning and then around lunch, and usually the maximum period of time that she stayed gone has only been like a day to a day and a half at the most. And as a result of that, I thought that she would join us. So he went to his family's 4th of July party, just hanging out, probably drinking the beers. And he was like, maybe she'll show up. He knew she wasn't going to show up. Grace said that some people had accused Houck of not being involved enough in the search efforts. She asked what he thought of that. This is great. That is a great question, and one I certainly appreciate you asking, Houck said. And That is all of my effort in searching for her has been done behind the scenes with the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. Detective Snow, who is leading the investigation, and Jason Allison, who is a deputy there assisting him along the Kentucky State Police Agency, post number 12, Hawk said. Grace brought up the
The podcast is coming back with 5 brand new episodes, and you can catch an early release of the first one.
I don't want you to do that, lady. She's messing me up. I hate when that comes on. It just like automatically comes on. Hopefully it's muted. Okay, sorry. Grace brought up the polygraph test and asked if Hawk passed. He said it was ruled as inconclusive, and he wasn't exactly sure what that means. I have been 100% completely honest with everyone. I have been 100% cooperative in everything that has been asked of me. I have not asked for any kind of legal advice or assistance or an attorney of any nature. I'm 100% completely innocent in this, and I have exhausted my efforts with law enforcement agencies to gather all the facts necessary to allow me to have a clean name again. That's very important to me. Not find a crystal, clearing your name. We haven't even found crystal yet. It's different. You know what I mean? It's just tacky. I have not responded to a lot of the negativity and all of the animosity because I want the emphasis to remain on Crystal's safe return home. And that's where I wanted to stay focused in the area rather than dealing with any of this animosity between the families. Okay. But yeah, if you didn't get a chance to watch that Nancy Grace episode, I do have it on my playlist under the Crystal Rogers playlist. If you want to watch it, it was pretty good. She grilled him, and he just has like this little, he has that Kentucky like voice. So I was trying to do it. I can't do it though. I can't do his voice. I just can't. So, okay, we're going to move over to Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. This is 41 minutes long. So I don't think it's really that long because he has commercials and stuff. But basically what he's going to do is he's going to go over the overall story, the overall case of Crystal Rogers. And it says on here, let me see. They're going to talk about Tommy Ballard also. So they're just going to cover a lot of the case for us. I haven't watched this one yet, so I hope it's pretty good. I was like listening to another podcast I was going to bring you guys instead. And then I saw this one and I was like, maybe we should do that one. So I will put up some pictures as well. So that way you have something to look at. You're not just like staring at this white screen. I think I have some, but if I don't have any loaded, because you can only load so many, I'll pull some up and put them up there for you guys. But thank you all for being here. I do appreciate it so much. If you guys don't mind just hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button, all the fun things.
Raised mules, if you can imagine that, for people there were actually a group of guys that would buy mules from him that wanted them to pull wagons. And there was actually one old man that still preferred a mule-drawn plow over a tractor. But when I had free time with my papa Morgan, one of the things that he would take me to do too, actually, was to fish for bluegill. That's brim with a cane pole. And number 2 was to go hunting. Now, the thing about this is that in my family, everything my family did was for subsistence. They had a huge garden, and it's not like it was a hobby. They had to have a garden, and it was massive, and they worked in it all the time. When they went hunting, it wasn't like it was a pleasure trip. My grandfather would probably look back and laugh at these guys that pay thousands and thousands of dollars to go out and hunt from a helicopter. He did it so that he could put food on the table. Now, one of his primary things that he would hunt for, and I know many of you guys will recoil over this, was squirrel. My grandmother could take a squirrel, and she would make squirrel and rice. And it was one of the best tasting things in the world. Now, as I've gotten older, squirrel is not necessarily in my repertoire anymore, as it were. But I remember going out in those piney woods in North Louisiana with my papa, walking along, 5, 6, 7 years old. And no, he didn't give me a gun. I just walked along with him. And his eyes were always toward the sky, looking in the tops of those trees. And he'd bag a squirrel every single time. And that was pure joy to me, just being with him, learning from him, covering my ears from the sound of that 12-gauge shotgun going off. But today, we're going to talk about a case that involves two deaths. One you're very familiar with, Crystal Rogers, and the other maybe not so much, but just as important in this case is Crystal Rogers' daddy, who went by the name Tommy Ballard. He was actually shot and killed while walking through the woods with his 12-year-old grandson. And it's for that reason I really wanted to talk about this case today. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. The older I get, Dave, the more I would desire to have a time machine. I wish I could go back in time and see my papa and my granny again. I wish I could, to sit at my granny's kitchen table, and they had a very, very tiny house. Their kitchen table was their dining room as well. We would have Christmas meals and Thanksgiving meals in the same room where they were being prepared, but it was a joyful scene. It was always warm, and everybody would sit around the table and we talk about things. I remember sitting next to my granddaddy, and he would actually, the way he would complain about coffee because he liked it strong. My granny's name was Pearl. He'd be sitting there, and I think she did this on purpose. He's a big man. She'd make him drink out of these little tiny coffee cups with a saucer. and if the coffee wasn't strong enough, he'd say, "Earl, you run out of coffee."
Oh my goodness.
And so, that was kind of his way, and it had to have chicory in it. In Louisiana, chicory is a thing that developed back in, I think probably pre-Civil War, but they would make,
Wow.
Southerners would make coffee out of anything. And it's horrible taste to me. I don't like it. I know some of you guys will take offense to that too, probably, but I just don't like chicory coffee.
Whenever I hear the name Pearl used as a Southern woman's name, the Beverly Hillbillies and Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, Pearl, don't give your love to Earl.
Okay, how much is this guy getting paid? Because he's on Nancy's show. I'm not talking about Joe Scott Morgan. I'm talking about the robot guy. Because he's on Nancy's show. He's on Body Bags. We got to see if he's on Cheryl McCollum's channel.
Just remember that. But Bardstown, Kentucky, if you look it up, you're going to find out there's a number of stories about Bardstown. Beautiful town in Kentucky. The sad part is that most of the stories that you read are going to be of unsolved murders.
Oh, Lord.
Not unsolved deaths. We're talking unsolved murders. In this case, we're right off the top mentioning Crystal Rogers and her father, Tommy Ballard. Now, Crystal Rogers' body has never been found. Tommy Ballard died 16 months after Crystal went missing. And the only thing we know for sure is that he didn't kill himself because his gun had not been fired. That was something that was bandied about at first.
Yeah.
In the cases we're talking about today, the FBI had to be called in. And oftentimes that is the case when you might have a conflict internally. The FBI has to be invited in. They don't just come in and take over.
Right.
And we had in Bardstown, Kentucky, you have Bardstown Police Department and you have the Sheriff's Department. In this case, Crystal Rogers and Brooks Houck had a 2.5-year-old toddler that they biologically were the parents, and Crystal Rogers had 4 other children, and they were living together under the same roof as husband and wife, Brooks Houck and Crystal Rogers. Now, Crystal Rogers went missing. Her car was found on the side of the road 2 days after she was reported missing. Yep. We're talking about in 2015, around the 4th of July holiday, 2015. When Crystal Rogers went missing, it wasn't Brooks Houck that reported his partner, live-in partner. They cohabitated. That's what boggles my mind. He didn't report her missing, Joe. She was reported missing by her mother. Because when Brooks Houck is in Bardstown and he sees Crystal Rogers' mother, and she said, "Hey, Brooks, I haven't talked to Crystal. Where is she?" He's, "I don't know. I hadn't seen her." "What? Don't y'all live together? What do you mean you haven't seen her?" And Brooks just goes on about his merry way like nothing's up. Crystal Rogers' mother goes, "Well, I'm reporting her missing." And she goes right to the police station right then. She knows something is up because this is not how she has a relationship with her daughter. They talk every day. They see each other all the time. I mean, this was a very small town. They knew one another, okay? And in terms of friends and family, and not seeing somebody, not talking to somebody is an unusual occurrence. Ooh. And saying, "I don't know," is not a good answer.
Yeah, you're right. And it's that familial circle, that you and I talk about so often, Dave. If there's anything that disrupts that, and a lot of it depends upon the other people within that circle and how acutely aware they are of the situation that's going on with, the dynamics of a couple and that sort of thing. Is there anything that kind of stinks, that just doesn't line up? And look, man, when you begin to think about how, first off, she had not had contact with her mother.
Right.
And you've got the person in her life that, okay, let's face it, is the most intimate relationship that you probably have.
They have a 2-year-old child together.
Oh boy. Yeah. And they're domiciled together. Yeah. To top things off, you had mentioned something, and this roadway is going to come up a couple of times. And remind me, Dave, if I'm ever heading up to Kentucky, which, by the way, I love that state. It's one of the most beautiful places. The farms and oh my gosh, it's striking when you're up there. But if I'm going up there, remind me to stay off the Bluegrass Parkway.
Do not ride Bluegrass Parkway, Joe. No. Especially around Bardstown. Get off and walk, get a mule. Do not drive on that highway.
I know. It's like, that keeps coming up. And, when you have a person that is missing and you have their vehicle found along the roadway, first off, when you walk up to the vehicle, police officer's going to check and see, well, check one box, is anybody in it? And if it's absent any sign of life, or maybe somebody that's sleeping, or maybe something really bad, you're thinking maybe they're deceased and they're laying inside the visible space, which, by the way, is a principle within law. When if a police officer can walk up and actually evidence something inside of a vehicle, that's immediately cause for them to want to explore further. And sometimes if somebody's in danger, they don't necessarily have to have a warrant at that moment in time, because it's the idea that it's an emergent situation. I actually worked a case, and you might find this interesting, of a fellow that we found dead on the highway, dumped in the middle of I-285 in Atlanta on a ramp. And this guy had been brutalized. He was shot multiple times, including in the head. It turns out that this fellow was at the Final Four in Atlanta. He had tickets to the ball games. He got robbed by two guys. They took his car, and they were later caught in Ohio for speeding or breaking center line. And guess what the cop wound up seeing when he walked up to the car? He pulled him over. It's like that scene from Pulp Fiction where Marvin gets shot in the head, and they said, "Man, what'd you shoot? Why'd you shoot Marvin?" And the whole back of the interior of that car, as an Ohio State trooper, I'll never forget this, was just blasted with blood deposition.
Oh, he'd been killed in the car
in Atlanta, and they had driven his car to Ohio.
Man.
So, when you're
they should have called Mr. Wolf. The Wolf could have taken care of that, man.
Yeah, oh, the Wolf's on it, huh?
Yeah.
So when you get up, a police officer walks up to a vehicle. Now, obviously, that's a stop. When you find a car abandoned on the side of the road, and how many times do you ride down the road, Dave, and you might see a car sitting on the side of the road, and it's been there for a while, and you're thinking, has anybody ever stopped to take a look at that car? What's going on with that? And why is it still here? Why have the authorities not had it removed? Because it's obviously a hazard. It's dangerous, to have these things on the shoulder of the road. But they're going to check inside of it, and they're going to look for any evidence. Now, what stood out to you relative to when they got to her car and they began to inspect it?
The fact that it was found after she's reported missing, okay?
Yeah.
That Bluegrass Parkway is a busy thoroughfare. It would have been noticed, I would have thought, before this, okay, if it had been there. So that's number one. Number two, the car is found with a flat tire by mile marker 14 on the Bluegrass Parkway. The keys are still in the ignition, and her purse and cell phone are inside. If the keys are in the ignition, her purse and cell phone are inside the car, and there's a flat tire. If you assume that she had a flat tire and pulled over, and then had to leave to go get help, she would have left with her keys, her purse, her cell phone, just normal stuff that we would grab to leave. So immediately, it appears to me to be a staged scene because of the stuff.
Well, yeah, it's on the Bluegrass Parkway. You can't just be walking up and down the Bluegrass Parkway. Nobody would do that. They would call somebody, come and help me, or Geico. come and get me. But I think that she would have called Brooks
that's left
before she would have started trucking it. You know what I mean?
Behind. Because all you're left with is she had a flat tire and somebody came along and kidnapped her, grabbed her and threw her in their car and took off.
What lady is going to leave behind her possessions, particularly things like a phone that can keep you safe?
Yeah.
At least you have the ability at your fingertips to dial 911 or hit speed dial and hit somebody that is, that can take care of you. You're just going to wander off on this roadway, which kind of painting the picture here. This, for those of you that might not be familiar, when you see the Bluegrass Parkway, it's, it varies in lane size periodically, but for the most part, it is a state road that has 4 lanes. You got 2 on one side going one direction. You got 2 on the other side. It's going to have a median, and it's going to have shoulders on the side of the road. And every now and then you'll come across, it's not like necessarily being on an interstate per se, but it's a well-traveled area. You're going to catch the attention. When you think about kidnapping, you think about somebody going off the road. You remember recently we've covered this horrible case out of Oklahoma where these women were taken down, and that's an out of the way location. Right? We're not talking about that with the Bluegrass Parkway. We're talking about, this thing's got traffic on it. I mean, there are people moving back and forth. I think it runs kind of from the southwest up to the northeast. And so it's a way to get from point to point that you would see semi-trailers on. I mean, you'd see campers on, everyday traffic on. It's not like a farm road like in Oklahoma.
Right. And that's why I'm saying if her car was found 2 days after she's reported missing, there should have been, based on the traffic and based on who's driving along the Bluegrass Parkway on a regular basis, somebody would have seen the car. They would have reported it. I mean, hey, I just saw Crystal's car. It's not like they don't know one another. So there's a lot here to be concerned with. But based on her car is found with a flat tire and all of her personal belongings inside 2 days after she's reported missing. And by the way, she's still missing. She went missing in 2015. They have not found Crystal Rogers, Joe.
I know. And that's a huge chilling piece to this, Dave, is that after all of these years, she's nowhere to be found. And I got to ask you a question. Do women like Crystal Rogers just merely vanish, vaporize, disappear into thin air? I think not. In forensic science, we do what we do in order to identify, collect, and analyze evidence. We generate reports and we present it to those interested parties to do with as they wish. When I'm thinking about a car like this that's found along a roadway, I'm going to want to know if the owner, the primary operator, is absent from that vehicle. What wound up bringing this vehicle to a halt in this particular location? Is there damage to the vehicle? I think that you had mentioned, Dave, that there was a flat tire. Forensically, I'd want to know about the origin of that flat tire, because, you can catch a nail, and Lord knows I've caught things off of roadways, angle iron, all kinds of stuff that have, split very expensive tires from me, created. Or has a tire been punctured like on the sidewall by something that, I don't know, ice pick, knife? Was it slashed? We've heard stories of people going through apartment parking lots, where they'll take a knife and a razor and slash people's tires.
Right.
And so there's a lot to be gleaned. But if you've got people that are living together, if you're looking for a suspect, there is like DNA evidence that's within the cabin of a vehicle that you would expect to find within that vehicle. It doesn't mean that those people might not be associated with their missing, but you would want to find something that is going to be an outlier, maybe or perhaps somebody that's unexpected, unidentified DNA or blood evidence that's contained within here. And I just don't know to this point that they've really ever opened up about that, Dave.
There are a lot of issues surrounding the disappearance of Crystal Rogers and the murder of Tommy Ballard, her father, 16 months later, that have to do with cross-section of police, sheriff's department, the Kentucky State Police, and the FBI. And I don't throw that out there in a minimalistic way, because first things first, Brooks Houck. He is the significant other of Crystal Rogers when she goes missing. They're living together. They have a 2.5-year-old toddler, and they have Crystal Rogers, 4 of their children. The Brooks Houck is the male parent of the household. And when she goes missing, he doesn't report her missing. Her mother has to report her missing. Now, Brooks Houck would be the first person you would want to talk to. Hey, man, tell us what happened.
Yep.
His brother, Brooks Houck, has an older brother named Nick Houck. Nick Houck works as a police officer for the Bardstown Police Department. So keep these separate. The Bardstown Police Department and the Sheriff's Department are 2 separate entities. They don't always work together. Sheriff's Department serves an entire county. Bardstown Police, Bardstown City. The Sheriff's Department is in charge of this case due to where everything was found. And so Brooks Houck is brought in for an interview. What happened, Brooks? Tell us about, when did you last see Crystal Rogers? Because he is the last person to see her. He is having a conversation with Sheriff's Department investigator. And during the interview, Brooks Houck receives a phone call from his brother, Nick, the police officer with Bardstown Police Department. Now, Joe, when we actually have the interview, you and I have both watched the interview with Brooks Houck and the Sheriff's Department, where he lays out his story, which we're going to share with you. But during the interview, Nick Houck calls Brooks Houck, and Brooks Houck asks, hey, you mind if I take this? I need to take it. And so he answers the phone. We only hear Brooks Houck's side of the conversation.
Yep.
But I'm going to tell you, to me, it sounded scripted. It sounded planned out. It sounded like Brooks Houck was trying to get his version of events on the record without ever being challenged. He knows everything's being recorded. And so there was one thing that he says on this phone call with his brother, Nick. He says, Nick, I don't think she ran off with another man, and you're not going to convince me of it. They're not going to convince me of it, And I'm like, so he's laying, the guilty party always lays out another option for where the person is.
Yeah.
And so he lays that out there. But then he says, well, Nick, I'm just here to help. They need my help. I just want to help them find her. And if you say I need to leave because they're going to jam me up, I'll leave. If you're telling me to leave, I'll leave. And so he has the excuse, hey, my brother, the police officer, just told me to end this because you guys are going to try to frame me. And he leaves. Not before the police tell him, well, you're the main suspect. You got holes in your story, man. Nick Houck, by the way, the older brother lost his job by doing that.
Yeah.
That phone call.
It seems staged.
Yes.
To me, at least. It reminded me back when Saturday Night Live was something that I watched during the days of John Lovitz. He did an over-the-top presentation of being an actor, and he would do his hand up in the air and say, I am an actor, like that. And that it's kind of smacked of that.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, let me kind of interject this into the conversation.
I thought you were going to go with Morgan Fairchild.
No, not that one. No, I wasn't going to do that one. But the idea that he's bold enough to have this conversation. And some people, I've heard actual people that have criticized the police officer for allowing him to take that phone call. Let me tell you something. Police are about harvesting data, information, and anything that you say or do, where it's being taped or recorded, it has potential utility for their case. So the fact that he allowed him to have this conversation, if he had said, no, put it away, we're talking right now, we want to continue this conversation, we wouldn't have, even though it was a one-sided conversation that he was having on the phone, we wouldn't have that. It wouldn't be documented. And I think for investigators, and certainly now in the wake of, lo these many years later, we have the FBI that's involved in the case. You think those guys have looked at that video and listened to it?
That video was 4 days after her disappearance, by the way. It was not even a week. It was 4 days. Okay. They've got Brooks in there 4 days after she goes missing, and they're getting him his story. This is the first thing police have to do. You're a suspect because you're in the relationship with her, but you're the last person that saw her, and we need to know where you were, what you two were doing. And they're going to get that story. And this is the story you're held to. That's why attorneys say, do not talk to police ever, because whatever you say is now your story. Yeah. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. Anything you change from here on out proves you're a liar.
Right.
So,
and that's the way it would roll on. But, looking at this on the flip side as well, we talked about the level of intimacy with this relationship. Brother, let me tell you something. If this was my precious wife, I'd first off, they'd have to keep me chained to the chair because I'm going to be out beating the bushes looking. I'm going to be up and down that parkway out there, the Bluegrass Parkway, which you and I have both now sworn off of. I'm going to be beating the bushes out there, and I'm going to be looking. I'm going to assemble friends. I'm going to do everything that I can. And look, let the hide come with the hair, as they say. I'm going to be going through this area as rigorously as I possibly can to try to track down this person that I've got a child with, that I've shared a life with. But the problem is, Dave, is that we don't see this coming through. We don't see that kind of evangelical zeal here.
Right.
And for an investigator that's digging into this, and when you've got somebody that I'm sure they picked up on pretty quickly, it seems to be kind of play acting, if you will. There are a lot more unanswered questions to come. In Alabama, we're known here, and to maybe a lesser degree, Alabama has quite the reputation, though, for severe weather. It's part and parcel of living here. And, we deal with tornadoes and all those sorts of things. But the old adage that comes to mind for me when you talk about storms, and I know it's a metaphor for life, but the idea of lightning never striking twice in the same location, there's some truth to that, I think, both as a metaphor, and there are people out there who have been struck by lightning multiple times. But for the most part, to have two critical events happen in such close proximity, and I'm talking about Crystal Rogers, and I'm talking about her daddy, Tommy. Dave, what are the odds that this could actually occur? And again, here's our favorite roadway again. Got to say it again.
Bluegrass Parkway.
The Bluegrass Parkway. These two events happen in proximity to this roadway. That's why it seems cursed to me almost.
It is. And to get to Tommy Ballard, Crystal Rogers' father, 16 months after she's missing now, I want to go back very quickly. Brooks Houck, in a relationship with Crystal Rogers, they have a 2.5-year-old toddler. Now, as part of his story for what he was doing when they last saw each other, Brooks Houck told police that he and Crystal Rogers were at his mom's farm, at Brooks Houck's mom, and at midnight. We're talking in the middle of the night. That's what he told police. They were just out walking around. Now, the officer is the toddler's 2.5 years old. Who goes out to a farm in the middle of the night with a 2.5-year-old? Nobody, because they can't walk really without, you can't see. There's just a lot wrong with his story, but you have to look at his story.
I mean, he said they took the cow, or they were going to feed the cows at midnight with a 2-year-old. He said he stays up late all the time.
And figure out, what's he trying to spin? Is he trying to set himself up as being at the farm property in the middle of the night in case somebody saw? Because that's what it sounds like. Now, early on, they brought out tracker dogs to these different sites that Brooks Houck has mentioned, including the farm, because they wanted to track Crystal Rogers. Did they pick Crystal up out at the farm? Well, they did. These dogs tracked Crystal Rogers out at Brooks Houck's mom's farm without any trouble at all. But you know what they didn't do? The dogs were the same dogs that tracked Crystal Rogers' body out at the farm. They were also brought to her car on Bluegrass Parkway to see, did she get out of that car and walk? Those same dogs malfunctioned and couldn't pick up a scent. So They can pick her scent up at the farm, but they can't pick her scent up at her car on the Bluegrass Parkway. What does that tell you? Okay, so here
she wasn't driving that car.
We go. We know she was at the park because we know that's what they were told. We also know that Nick Houck tells his brother Brooks, get out of there. Don't talk to the sheriff's department. So now Nick Houck, wait, why are you telling your brother to not do this? This is an unwritten rule. You don't do this, man. So now Nick Houck is in trouble with his boss. He's also now a suspect because why is he doing this with his brother? Yep. So here we go. They can't find Crystal Rogers anywhere. They've got signs they keep putting up. And you know what? Somebody goes around town and takes these signs down, Joe. Crystal Rogers is missing. They have this huge bourbon festival. Bardstown is like the bourbon capital of the world. Right. Bardstown, Kentucky, for crying out loud. And they have thousands of people that come into Bardstown. And they were really trying to find Crystal Rogers. Help us find. Yep. She's missing. This mother of 5, 35 years old, is missing. Please help. And they're putting signs everywhere so that everybody, the thousands of people that come to the festival, will be able to help us find Crystal. But you know what? Somebody is taking the flyers down, taking the signs down right before all these thousands of people they're taking them down.
Can you believe that? And that ain't some bullcrapping either. They were taking signs down for this poor woman. 5 kids, mother of 5, in her 30s. My Lordy, too young.
Who would do that? What kind of monster takes those down?
Who could be that bold? Or who could be that emboldened in order to do this? And the fact that, she seems literally to vanish into thin air. Mm-hmm. I think relative to the car, did the dogs actually, as you had said, malfunction out there?
They had to have. Yeah.
Or was the car driven out there without her presence, and they've worked before? So what has happened in between those times where they don't get a hit, and it's not like you're talking about a single animal. And so what are the odds now when you begin to think about this?
If she had a flat tire and she was there, you would expect that she would have gotten out of the car to at least look, hey, what's going on, Right. And so you would have that. They didn't pick up anything, Joe. Nothing. Yeah. The same dogs that picked her up at the house.
It's fascinating when you think about that relative to and she's not unfamiliar with this area.
Right.
Okay. This is kith and kin. She's grown up here. She's got people here. That she's going to know where to go or, how to get access to help.
She has a phone. Her cell phone is found in the car, for crying out loud. You mentioned it earlier. She could have called 911 if anything, But I want to get to something very quickly because Nick Houck, Brooks Houck's older brother, he's a police officer, Bardstown Police. He tells his brother to leave that. Don't talk to the cop anymore. So after that, his boss brings him in. They read him the riot act. By the way, Nick Houck gets fired 3 or 4 months later. Like, we can't tolerate this because they set him up for a polygraph. They bring in Brooks Houck, Nick Houck. We're going to get you guys on polygraph. You're telling the truth. Okay, no worries. So Nick Houck comes in and he fails miserably on this polygraph test. And they basically call him out. We know you know more than what you're telling us. And he is told, Nick Houck is told, we used luminol on the trunk of your squad car and it lit up like Chernobyl. That's the phrase they used. It lit up like Chernobyl. So I don't know if they were saying that in truth or if they were saying it to trip him up. I don't know. But we do know this. Crystal Rogers still hasn't been found. And 16 months after she goes missing, her dad, Tommy Ballard, it's early in the morning. He's with his 12-year-old grandson, and they're going to go hunting. A pretty common occurrence for those who like the outdoors that live around Bardstown, Kentucky. So Tommy Ballard has his hunting rifle and his 12-year-old grandson, and they're on their own property, right?
Yeah.
And somehow, in the early morning hours, if I'm not mistaken, it was around 6 a.m.
Yes.
And somehow, some way, Tommy Ballard is shot in the chest from a rifle that can't be seen from anywhere.
Yep. Let me hang on. Let me ask you something real quick. First blush here. what does that tell you about the individual that fired this weapon? And
lying in wait.
And it also goes to familiarity, doesn't it?
Buddy. Yeah.
So that you have to know points of access. Here's another bit here that's kind of
points of access is a really good phrase.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. And you have to understand the utility of those perspectives. When we're working a shooting scene from a reconstruction standpoint, we consider, if say you've got Tommy who has been shot, you're going to pull these kind of lines of sight that, like a wagon wheel, the spokes of a wagon wheel kind of radiate out from his body.
Okay.
But you have to consider, and this is something that we assess at autopsy, kind of the angle from which this round struck him. That's where the grandson's testimony or statement, let's put it to you that way, put it out there that way. What position were you and Granddad in when you were walking and he fell? Because you might actually, depending upon the distance, he may have seen him fall first before he heard the report of the weapon, or he may have heard the report of the weapon. He's going to turn his head and then witness his grandpa maybe grasp his chest, or just fall over graveyard dead right there on the spot. So one of the things that you try to assess at a scene, and once you can establish that point, the directionality of the bullet, that's one of the things that we always try to do. You hear about our assessments at autopsy where we talk about, we'll say, well, it's from front to rear. The round travels from front to rear. It goes from high to low, which means maybe you're in a position of dominance and firing down on a target, or from below to above. Maybe it lifts from right to left of the decedent. It originated to his right side. And we can actually look at these injuries and give you an idea. But here's the problem with this particular injury that this man has sustained, Dave, is that the range is indeterminate. Wow. Because it's not like somebody walked up to him and fired this round into his chest, where we're going to have soot deposition and all of those things that we look for relative to close gunfire. This is fired at a distance. So the only thing that you're really going to have is this kind of abraded area around the round. And where this originates from? You'll see it. It's kind of red, irritated little area that's around the actual injury itself. And it's because the bullet is spinning through the air, and it literally twists the skin like that. That's all you see on these indeterminate. You can rounds.
Actually see that in the skin?
Yeah, you can. And microscopically, you can pick up on it. I've never heard that before. Yeah, you can pick up and take sections of it. And it's demonstrated pretty well. But you can see it with, I'll tell you, you can see it with a hand lens, a magnifying glass. You can actually take it and see it like that once the wound is cleaned of blood and that sort of thing. But the only thing that it really tells you is that it's from an indeterminate distance. Once you get away, beyond, some people have a variety of different parameters they put on it. You think about 36 inches is generally about the maximum distance. So anything within 36 inches, you might have a shot at getting soot deposition. So out beyond about 36 inches, brother, you ain't getting nothing. And so it's not going to tell you how the range of fire. But we know that no one was approximating him with this weapon like some mystery person appeared in the woods as they're walking down this path and fired that round. Here's another thing, too, that's interesting about this is that, Dave, we're talking about the roosters are just waking up. All right. This is early in the day. How is a killer going to know about the timetable involved when you exit out of your home with your grandson? Mm-hmm. You talk about a total disregard. This ranks right up there with one of the more callous things that we've covered, because you're literally murdering this gentleman in front of his 12-year-old grandson. Just let that sink in for a second. Is this something that's going to leave his mind? You remember how I was talking about early on? I was talking about memories that I had walking through the woods with my papa. I still remember it to this day. My grandfather was not murdered. You know, this is a time that is marked in this child's mind forever and ever. Amen. Moving forward. And so who's familiar enough with the schedule that Tommy would have had? And going back to Crystal, who's familiar enough with her schedule to get her off the road, if you will, and out of the regular rhythm.
Right.
Rhythm. You're talking about a lady that has children.
You know, I was just thinking about that too with Tommy Ballard. Whoever shot him, they would have had to have known that he was going to be out that morning hunting. Maybe not with maybe they didn't know with his grandson, but they had to have known that he would have been out hunting that morning. I'm wondering, this happened, when was Tommy shot? I'm wondering if Tommy was shot towards the beginning of hunting season, where like it was the first couple of days or something where people would be out. But I'm going to double check and see, because I know here hunting season starts, I believe, with the gun in the beginning of October.
5 kids.
Yeah, she has a very regimented world. This idea that her parents, grandparents, you've got brothers and sisters. You know that if you're the person in charge, baby, you got to keep a tight timetable. And the more elements, children that you have in the picture, the tighter your time is. You don't have time for foolishness. So you have to be able to understand who in her world, who in Tommy's world would have had enough of an awareness of what their daily routine was. And back to Tommy, I know I'm kind of running back over the same paths here, but there's so much to unpack with this case when you think about time alone. Who in the world would have known that on that particular day, at that particular time, he would have exited from his house with his grandson and began to trek off into the woods to hunt?
From that location, by the way.
From that specific location. Who would have known it?
And by the way, that specific location, but right up against the Bluegrass Parkway.
Access and opportunity. And showing up with the tools. Showing up with the tools to do the job. Being familiar with the terrain. Is there a place you could go and hide? Oh, yeah. I mean, look, do me a favor. Don't believe what I'm saying. Next time you're riding down the road and you're on a 4-lane highway, a state highway, look on either side. Look at the brush line that's there. You can't see what's on the other side. Now, you might come across a field every now and then where it's cleared out. But for the most part, you're going to see pine trees. You might see an occasional oak tree, but you're going to see low-level brush, which if you wanted to create a hide, if you put it in the terms of, and let's just face it, this is an assassination, I think, where it's planned. You have an opportunity to do it. This isn't like some random round now, is it, Dave, that just traveled out of nowhere and happened to strike this man in the chest.
And it happened on November 19th. So we're talking about the early morning hours of a cold November morning in Kentucky.
Yeah, and this is right at the time of year, at least down here in the South, where most deer season, whitetail season kicks off, so you're in that area. Well, he's going out. I guess he's going to try to bag a deer with his grandson. That's probably what they're going to try to do. And they're out there, they're in motion. This is property that he knows. I don't know. Maybe he's got salt blocks out on his property. Maybe he has a specific area where, deer are going to walk into his field of view and he'll be able to take a deer and his grandson will be able to witness it. I don't know.
When you look at this, it says Ballard was preparing for a hunting trip with his 12-year-old grandson on family property next to the Bluegrass Parkway in Bardstown, Kentucky. An unknown subject fired one shot and hit Ballard in the chest and instantly killed him. Yeah, the gun the rifle they believe that was used in the murder of Tommy Ballard was once owned by Nick Houck.
Holy smokes.
The older brother of Brooks Houck. This story continues. These are Brooks Houck has been arrested and charged in the murder of Crystal Rogers, even though they haven't found her body. Now, Joe, I have a question. How do you do that? What do they do with you? Do you come into play where the police sit down and say, okay, Professor Morgan, we haven't found the body, but here's what we do have. Is there any way you believe this person might still be alive? What do we do here? And we got the body of Tommy Ballard. We do not have the body of Crystal Rogers.
Yeah. And unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, this is from a practicality standpoint. There's nothing really that the medical examiner can do in that circumstance. If you don't have, like, we play into, our world plays into a missing individual where they are declared dead. If say, and here's the term that I use, people get frustrated with it sometimes, but when you have a copious amount of blood at a scene,
right.
One of the things they will ask the medical examiner is, this much blood that we're seeing at the scene, is this compatible with life? And you might look at it, and there's really, if you have a big blood stain, there's no way to actually calculate the volume, okay, on carpet and anywhere else. We can speak to that and say, yeah, this volume of blood might not be compatible with life. But Dave, with Crystal, we're not talking about a volume of blood. We're talking about a woman that has just vanished. And how do people vanish? I think one of the most interesting things about Crystal's disappearance and continuing absence, you know, she has, yeah, as you had mentioned rightly, that she's been declared dead at this point in time. This is a homicide. He's been charged with homicide, and you do not charge with somebody with homicide if you do not believe that subject to in fact be dead. So one of the interesting elements is, how do you make a body disappear? Do you have access to heavy equipment?
Do
you have access to, say, for instance, I don't know, tools to create cement with?
Yep.
Do you have access to the ability to render down a body? And when I say that, I'm talking about dismemberment. I'm talking about fire.
That's what I thought.
Do you have the willpower and the tools and the ability to do that? And still, since we're talking 2015, Dave, as of this recording right now, it's 2024. A lot of water's passed under the bridge. There's been a lot of people looking for her. There are rewards out there. There are rewards for both Tommy and for Crystal. And to this point, we don't know really any more than we have when she went missing. But I can tell you this, the police are still investigating. And hopefully, at some point in time, we're going to see more evidence come to light. We'll be keeping an eye on this case moving forward. I can guarantee you that, because this is one of the biggest mysteries that I've covered in some time. And we're going to travel down the Bluegrass Parkway one more time. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
Okay, that's Body Bags. I've never seen, I think we've only watched Joseph Scott Morgan like one other time on the channel. His voice makes me want to go to sleep. It's very therapeutic. It's extremely therapeutic. But that was what I wanted to bring you guys tonight. We are going to do a way deeper dive into this case. But I want to just kind of get it back out there on the table, you know, because there are court proceedings going on right now. There are some documents that have come out. I think there's like a 53-page document that just came out not too long ago. So I need to go through those. I think I have all the documents for this case. And I wanted to go over another podcast that it's like 30-minute episodes, and it'll break down the case really well for us. And it looks like we have some people in the chat that live around there, like a few people. So it must be those. We got some Kentucky people, we got Ohio, we got Indiana. Like we have like at least around the state if we're not in the state. So that's pretty cool. I do need a cardboard Joseph Scott Morgan. I'm going to do Vinnie Politan next if I do it. I thought that'd be funny. Nancy's standing right here. She's staring at me. She helps me, you know. She's like my cheerleader. Hey, Yankee Kyle. So yeah, that's really all I had too much. Yeah, you live really close, Jackie. I know that Nancy, like I said earlier, Nancy Grace did that interview with Brooks Houken. I think that she did an excellent job on getting him to speak without getting him to speak. You know what I mean? Like he was telling us things and he didn't even realize he was telling us things. But I do have an update on, okay. So Tony Baloney over there at Sebastian Rogers case, guess he did a TikTok tonight. So I'll either play that tonight when I get off here, or I'll play it tomorrow. Just depending if, you know, Vincent's awake. Yes. Fireworks with trial. Yeah. So you guys, you're going to see this case blow up. It's going to, because it was huge when it came, like when this stuff happened back 2015, 2016, people were like on this, like everybody was curious to know what was going on. And now that we have like even more social media and this much more access to things, I feel like it's just going to blow up. Like Court TV, I was saying in the chat, Court TV finally picked up Madalena Kojikari's case. I was like, thank you. Where you been the last year and a half? Like I was really excited about that. So yeah, this is a huge case. It's going to be a crazy one. I have a feeling they're all going to blame each other. Someone's going to try to take a deal. I wouldn't be surprised if Brooks got on the stand and tried to talk for himself. I hope he does it because no defendant should do that. So I hope he does, actually. I really hope he does because he's cocky. So he might. He might think that he could beat the system. I could see him being like that. You never know. I wish they would find her body too. I really, really wish, for her mother's sake and for the forensic sake. But like, and her children, they deserve to have somewhere where they can go and mourn their mother and know a piece of her is there. It's just sad. Now, maybe if Brooks decides to talk, they'll give him some sort of deal. A buy one get one half off deal, since her father was killed too. Which they might not charge Brooks with that. They might charge his brother, but they're still probably going to charge Brooks with something to do with that as well, I would assume. But you never know. You think he'll testify, K-Bird? I think he will too, probably. Yeah, for some closure, yeah. I mean, that's the one thing, like, I couldn't imagine someone being missing. Like, you don't have that answer. I'm one of those people, if I have a question, I have to know the answer, like, right then and now. I can't wait. And it's just, I don't know how they did it. Yeah. I heard that Crystal's mom has the baby now. Something was going on, like Brooks's mom wasn't going to fight the custody or something I was reading. I don't know where I read that at, but I hope that's the case. She deserves those babies. If anybody deserves babies, What was this? This case was reminding me of something else. And I can't remember. I can't remember what case it was, but it was just, so this one's just bad. So basically, to do like a recap, Crystal Rogers went missing July 3rd, 2015, July 3rd, 2015, from her home that she shared with Brooks Houck, her boyfriend/fiance, her 4 children, and their child that they shared together. They were out on the family farm, supposedly, one night feeding the cows at cows or pigs at 12 o'clock at night with a 2-year-old. They go home. Crystal plays games on her phone, and Brooks says he goes to bed. When he wakes up the next morning, Crystal is not there. Crystal's car is not there. 2 days later, they find Crystal's car on the Bluegrass Parkway. They found her diaper bag, purse, keys, all of that stuff cell phone was in the car. We have not seen Crystal ever since the 3rd. Maybe that was the last time she was seen, maybe the 2nd, because she might have been with Brooks all day on the 3rd. But I do believe that she's no longer with us. I do believe that. It's been way too many years. Unless this is one of those, crazy off the wall chances, but I doubt that. Maybe like the 0.1%. But yeah. And then of course, Tommy Ballard, her father, was unalived 16 months later. He was he was always looking for his daughter, and he thinks he was coming close. He had said he thought he was coming close. So I wonder what he found. If he had something on him that day, they took it off of him. I don't know. I wonder, but I don't think they walked up to him at all after they shot, because the grandson heard. So. Oh, really? Oh my gosh, does she really, Siggy? Wow. Tell her to look around, yeah. You never know. But yeah, no, I don't think that she's with us anymore. Her children don't deserve that. Her youngest baby is now without parents. I hate when people do this kind of stuff. If you're going to unalive somebody, you feel like the need to unalive somebody, maybe just don't do that. Go seek therapy, because you're going to seriously just get caught, and then you're going to be in prison, and ain't nobody going to see your baby. I just don't understand it. I must have that's why I'm not a killer. That's why I'm on this side and not in jail, I was trying to read the chat. Hogs eat people. They do solo. I know. It was cows on that farm. Okay. I thought it was cows. I couldn't remember if it was cows or pigs. I was like, which one were they feeding? I couldn't remember for sure. I'm just reading your guys' chats here. He never thought he would get caught. I think he thought he was too cocky to get caught. He acted like it. He was just going about his business, doing his construction, doing his housing things. It's just, man, crazy. They had pigs too. Oh, well, I wouldn't doubt it. Those people were something else. So I do have the thumbnail made for Sebastian Rogers. I think we might go live during the afternoon and I might play the TikTok for you guys. It's only like an hour long, so it's not very long. But Tony Mathis, I guess, was on TikTok tonight spewing some crap again. And we're here for it. We're here to see him just tank himself, you know, so then maybe we can get back to Sebastian and finding Sebastian, because these two clowns need to go and do something with themselves. It's crazy. Man, that's crazy. That is crazy. Siggy. Tell her to look around, knock on the doors, knock on the walls, make sure they're not hollow. They got, yeah, they did. They, I think it was mom or something. Mom or sister was someone in their family was taping the grand jury so they could all get their story straight. That's what it was reminding me of. It was reminding me of, like I said before, that another case reminded me of this, but the Piketon murders massacre, where a group of people like go to another person and unalive them. You know what I mean? Where it's just like a group of people. It's crazy. Yeah, they got busted. Because criminals are dumb. I love it when they say every arrest affidavit, it says they're Google searches. And I'm just like, I'm always here for a good Google search. We had the one guy that was Google searching his wife's weight and how long the drugs would, like how long it would take for them to go in our system and like all that. It was, I can't remember the word, or the medicine. It starts with a C. But yeah. It was like his mom or something DM. She recorded the grand jury and then they got caught. They got busted doing it. They're okay, so this is like the Murdaugh family of Bardstown, kind of. Do you know what I mean? Like they're affluent, prestigious. People know them in the community. They've got some money. Kids probably never been in trouble before, but they probably act out all the time when they were younger. I'm just assuming, assuming. But they look like those kids that were spoiled as shit and they shouldn't have been spoiled, you know? Like some kids are just like spoiled and they don't think that anything that they do has repercussions. They don't know that because they never had it growing up, you know? Now, my parents, on the other hand, if I got in trouble, I got in trouble. JK, I never got in trouble. I got grounded once and I got out of it. I ate a meatball my dad made. He liked to make food and I didn't like meatballs. So he's like, if you eat my meatball that I made for you, I'll let you be off grounded. It was like I was grounded for like 2 hours. So I ate that damn meatball. I took a bite of it. What happened to them for taping? I don't know, Serenity. I don't know what happened. I don't even know if they were charged. I'll have to look into that. But I know that they did tape it. I was reading into that earlier because I was trying to refresh my memory on everything. But we did go over the timeline in the beginning. Tomorrow evening, I think we're going to go over the Idaho case, Idaho 4, and Vinnie Politan did like a podcast over it, and I wanted to listen to that. I thought that would be really good to listen to with you guys. So we'll do that, and then we'll do some visuals and stuff too as he's talking. I can pull up the map of the house. Some of the stuff isn't included in the house tour anymore, but we can still look it up. You ate the damn meatball. I did, Stephanie. I got grounded because I stole the car. And I think we went out on the state route. I can't remember for sure. But I told when I went to pull back in, my mom was in front of me, my mom and dad. Like they had left and then I went to pull in. I thought I had time and they were literally in front of me. And my mom said, she was saying to my dad, like, where's my car? And my dad was like right behind us. Our 15-year-old daughter's driving it. And yeah, I told him I wanted to take it around the block for a car wash. I said, Stephanie, she was like this big Christian girl. Like they were probably like taunting me and just blaming it on the Christian girl. But I was like, Stephanie had a car wash and we just wanted to surprise you. And my mom was like, my car's not even washed. Yeah, it was fun growing up with my parents. They were like, they knew that I would have ended up telling them. I think I was supposed to be grounded for like 3 weeks or something. And I'm like, 3 weeks? What does that mean? Like, I never got grounded. I got grounded one other time and I forget how I got out of it. Probably doing something stupid again. Tampering with evidence, you think he'll get? Yeah, but his brother, he did get fired. Yeah. He got fired the day before my birthday. Huh. Good for him. Tanya, I know. I was a rebel, let me tell you. I think we just went around our like block or subdivision. You know what I mean? There was no cars or anything. But it was fun. I mean, you know, being bad. I haven't watched the full one of his brother, Jackie. I want to watch that one on the channel one night. We watched the one with Brooks, but we didn't watch the one with his brother, Nick. So I think we should do that one of our next lives. But I'm going to jump off here. You got grounded for a C in gym class when you twisted your ankle. What? I was saying you twisted your ankle. My first day of senior year in gym class, I got a basketball right to the face. I was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? I will. Yeah, Jackie, thank you. Well, everyone, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We do talk true crime daily here. We talk all the cases. We really do. Except for I haven't done the Karen Reed case. I'm not into that one. But all the other cases we do cover on this channel. If you guys have any questions or you want to send me an email, my email is in the chat, but it's titaniumbuiltboo@gmail.com. You can, you know, email me with any, you know, cases you want me to cover. That's kind of how I got started with Sebastian Rogers' case. Terry Dean wrote me and said, hey, will you cover this case? It's close to me. And I was like, sure. So we started covering it like March 5th, I think I said. March 5th, the day after the interviews came out with the mom and stepdad. And only Trev Time was covering it at the time. And then all of a sudden that case just blew up. So Corey Michelle. Let me write that. Let me write that one down. Let me type it up. I wonder if I can. Oh, there we go. I can like do that. Is that the one? Oh, is that the one about the treadmill? The treadmill one? We could do that one if you guys are still interested in that. Oh, we appreciate her mom. Her mom is stronger than anybody I've ever seen out here in true crime. Really. She's strong. I don't know how I would handle life after losing my daughter, my oldest daughter, and then my husband. Your rock. That was, you know, they got each other through the day, and it's just sad. It's really sad. But I do hope that they find something of her. I hope that one of them guys talks like it's, you know, sings like a canary. And I hope that they're like, yeah, we'll give you some sort of deal. Just like they did Joseph Lawson. They were going to give him a deal, but then he lied. So they took the deal off the table and they had his confession or whatever. They have his testimony. So don't be dumb like that. Don't be dumb like Joseph. But thank you guys all for being here tonight. I will be back on tomorrow. I'm going to do either an afternoon live tomorrow, or if you see me pop up tonight, I doubt I'll do it tonight. But if Vincent's sleeping, I might, because sometimes I'm up for a little bit after the live. But I'll see you guys all tomorrow. If not, have a good rest of your Memorial Day. Thank you guys all for being here. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button for all things true crime. Have a good night, guys. Bye.